In 1997, Steve Jobs made a power move that involved a very simple 2 by 2 matrix. This would ultimately save Apple and see them grow with 9,000% over the next 14 years. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what that was and also how you can use it. So to understand this power move, let's go back in time. It's 1997 and Steve Jobs has just returned to Apple after having been ousted for many, many years. He returns back to an Apple that is slowly withering. They have 90 days of cash left in the bank. They've just laid off 3,800 people because the previous year they lost $1 billion. And to add to that, there's just a lot of chaos and confusion because over the years, they've become pretty bloated. They are selling more and more products with more and more models inside of those products. And they're also doing licensing deals. And so all in all, it's just one big mess. And he's sitting in product review meeting after product review meeting, listening to more products and more features. And so the story goes that he was sitting in yet another meeting and listening to all of these features and all of these products and all the new things that we needed to do. And he stood up and he said, "Stop. This is crazy. If someone asked me what PC they should buy from Apple, I wouldn't know what to tell them." And so he got up, he grabbed a whiteboard marker, he went over to the whiteboard, and on it, he drew a very simple 2 by 2 matrix. On the y-axis, he wrote professional and consumer, and on the x-axis, he wrote desktop and portable. And he turned back to everyone in the meeting and he said, "This is what we need to do. We need to have one great product for each of these categories." And with this one power move, he slashed 70% of Apple's product lineup. The Performer brand gone, the Newton platform gone, all the licensing deals gone. Steve Jobs and this diagram took a sledgehammer to Apple's offerings, and it was the best thing that he could have done. So the power move here is brutal focus, the ability to eliminate things that are good so we can focus on those things that could be great. Stephen King used to say, "You must kill your darlings," meaning that even if you love an idea but it doesn't serve the greater story, you need to let it go. In fact, here's what Johnny Ive, one of the greatest designers inside of Apple at the time, had to say about this.
What focus means is saying no to something that you, with every bone in your body, you think is a phenomenal idea, and you wake up thinking about it, but you say no to it because you're focusing on something else.
When we can apply brutal focus to our priorities, products, and projects, it has tremendous upside for us. And research suggests that there are actually 2 reasons why this occurs, especially for businesses. The first thing that happens is that obviously everyone inside of the business becomes hyper-focused on what moves the needle forward. We know by now that when people are multitasking, that there's a switching cost, meaning that it takes a bit of time for your brain to catch up to the new activity. But we also know that there's a context switching cost, meaning that if I have to go from one project to another, it takes me a bit of time to get into it, to get into the feel of it. And so therefore, I'm actually not being as productive as I could be. The way that I like to think of it is that when I have 10 problems to solve, they need to take up space on my calendar. So physically, they need time. But I think the bigger cost that they actually incur is that when I'm walking with my dogs and I'm relaxing and having my brain do some work in the background, when I have 10 problems to solve, my brain has to figure out which is the most important problem that I need to pay attention to, and then all the other problems get neglected. Whereas if I only have 1 or 2 big problems that I'm focusing on, then it's much easier for my brain to know where it needs to allocate all my resources, time, and effort to. But the second great effect of brutal focus for organizations is that it also makes it much easier for your customers to know what to expect from you. Very often, we just accumulate more and more products and services, and at some point, people don't know what to do. Barry Schwartz's research on this is very well known, that the more options we present people with, the more they're likely to develop a paralysis. They don't know what to choose. The very famous jam experiment shows that when people were shown 6 jams, they were 10 times more likely to purchase than when they were shown 24 jams. And of course, that just makes sense. The more we have to process and try and figure out, the harder it becomes. And so the brutal focus that Steve brings to Apple's lineup by focusing on only 4 products means that Apple can put their best designers, engineers, and marketers onto every single product lineup. But it also means that their consumers know which is the best product for them to buy based on their needs. As you can probably guess, the sentiment around Apple at the time wasn't very good. In fact, back then, the CEO of IBM, Michael Dell, said that if he was in charge of Apple, he would shut it down and give the shareholders back their money. But here's the thing about a power move. A power move creates a very clear before and after. And this was exactly the case with Apple. The year before, Apple was losing $1 billion. They laid off 3,800 people. They were bloated, and it was full of confusion for both people inside of Apple and people buying from Apple. Afterwards, a year later, Apple went from losing $1 billion to making $309 million in profit. In fact, when they launched the iMac, they sold 800,000 units in just 5 months. It became America's second best-selling PC. But I think the most important thing that happened is that this laid the organizational foundation for what would become Apple's most revolutionary period, leading up to the iPod, the iPhone, and beyond. So with this power move, Steve Jobs proved to us that one of the most powerful things you can do is to decide what not to do. He took a company that was failing and turned it into a beacon of focused innovation by focusing on subtraction instead of addition. That's really what I want for you too. It's time for you to sit down and to ask yourself, what is it that you need to cut from what you are currently doing? What is not serving the bigger mission? What is actually distraction and just getting in the way? What is just not as important, but yet you are spending way too many resources on it? And what you will find is that there are so many things that are obvious that you need to get rid of, but those aren't the ones that I'm concerned about. The ones I'm concerned about are the ones that are difficult to say no to. It's painful when there's something that you really want to do, but you know that now is not the time for it. It's just getting in the way.
You think, well, focusing is saying yes. No. Focusing is about saying no. Focusing is about saying no. And you've got to say no, no, no. And when you say no, you piss off people.